This is CNN Breaking News.
And we begin with the breaking news. Some of your favorite websites and apps are back up and running right now after a major internet outage overnight.
While most of the nation was sleeping, Amazon Web Services reported a technical issue that took down all of these websites right here and apps. The company provides cloud services for all of them and more, including AT&T, Delta, McDonald's, Snapchat, even your Ring cameras. Amazon says it has identified and fixed the problem, but right now some users are still reporting problems. CNN's Bryn Gingras is following this story for us. Bryn, what more are you learning, and what are some of the issues that people are still encountering right now?
Yeah, Pam, well, quite frankly, I don't think there is a graphic that's large enough to show all the companies that are still impacted by this. This was a major outage that happened overnight. It lasted about 2 hours, and the problem, according to Amazon Web Services, has been mitigated, but there are some residual issues which you point to, Pam. For example, you mentioned Ring cameras. Some people might be trying to look at their Ring cameras and it says it's offline. Or if you're trying to maybe get a coffee at Starbucks and you're trying to use the app to pay for it, it might not yet quite work. Now it should very soon, or hopefully in the near future, because again, they say this problem is mitigated, but there is some residual troubleshooting that still needs to happen. During that 2-hour time frame of when this system went down, there was more than 1.4 million reports of problems just in the U.S. alone. And this was a global outage. So there were other countries that were reporting major outages as well. The Amazon Web Services makes up about 30% of the cloud sharing marketplace. So you can imagine how much this impacted not only businesses, but of course also consumers. So this is a major issue. Again, don't get frustrated. Maybe keep on refreshing your app, trying to see exactly what's is going to hopefully it'll pop back up sooner or later. But certainly this is something that they are looking into. As far as what caused this, what we're understanding is that the domain name system, or the DNS, which is being described as sort of a phone book for the internet, that is what went down. And essentially that means like those apps were trying to find the data that runs those apps and they were not connecting. And so that is what had caused this issue. Now, why it happened, that's still unclear. We're told by Amazon Web Services that there was no cyber attack, so that is a good thing, but still the troubleshooting of exactly why this was caused or why this happened, that might take a lot longer to figure out. But again, it is mitigated. The problem is gone, but you still, as a consumer and for businesses, might still be seeing some issues. So hang in there on this
Let
Monday.
me just jump in, actually, Bryn, because while you were on the air, we just got some new information that there are some fresh connectivity issues, and Amazon Web Services issued this update stating that it once again is experiencing network connectivity issues, saying we can confirm significant API errors and connectivity issues across multiple services in the U.S. East 1 region. It says that it's seen early signs of recovery and it's continuing to investigate the root cause. So we're still seeing this ripple effect.
I was going to say, so this Monday is just continuing to be a Monday and annoy everybody.
Exactly.
Yeah, it sounds like this is going to be an issue that maybe we see going back and forth, because certainly there are issues being reported by businesses and consumers of this ripple effect, and it might be something that we might see throughout the day as they continue to troubleshoot it, Pam.
Busy Monday for you, Bryn Gingras. Thank you so much.
Let's get you to Todd Bishop, the co-founder of GeekWire, which is a top technology news site. It's good to have you, Todd, at this early stage. What do we know about what went wrong?
Good morning, Becky. We know that this was a disconnect, effectively, between the database in one of Amazon's most important regions, arguably its most important region. And essentially, think of it like the internet's phone book, having a hard time looking up the number of the websites that use this database to store key information about their customers, about their services. And that disconnect caused basically a who's who of the internet to disconnect from the internet. You're talking Facebook, Snapchat, Coinbase, Venmo, Robinhood. I mean, the list goes on, and it really illustrates just the vital nature, for better and worse, that Amazon Web Services plays in our modern world.
So, yeah, so how would you describe the scale of this?
You know, this has happened before, and there have been bigger versions of this in the past. I would describe this in the sense of an earthquake. You know, this was effectively, I'd say, maybe a a 3.0 magnitude or 4.0 magnitude earthquake, sort of a reminder for these services that rely on AWS that they really need to do better to shore up their infrastructure, to have the kind of redundancy that'll prevent them from being reliant on AWS for when the big one happens. So this was not the big one. You know, it happened early in the morning in the US. Obviously, European sites and services and users were much more impacted and elsewhere around the world. But the fact that it started a little bit about, after midnight Pacific was probably a good thing.
And is it clear at this point whether this was a malicious attack or whether this was something behind the scenes, a mistake made by, I don't know, one of the coders or something? Is that clear at this point?
It appears, at least at this point, that this was not malicious, that this was some kind of configuration problem, perhaps a mistake made by an employee. That's happened in the past. But this does not appear to be any kind of cyber attack or other issue with external forces coming in to cause this issue.
To your last point, why are all these sites connected through what's known as AWS? I mean, the user experience seems separate, but they are obviously connected on the back end. Why isn't that? I mean, doesn't that leave them vulnerable to this kind of widespread issue, which going forward, frankly, could be malicious, correct?
There are tons of benefits that cloud service providers like Amazon, Microsoft, and Google and others provide in terms of security overall, the kind of scale that these companies need to operate their services, cost. It can be much more affordable than running your own data center. So we've seen these companies shift and really adopt the cloud over the past decade as a way to operate their services at a global scale. This is one of the downsides. We see it here today. And what it really speaks to is the need for all of these sites and apps to double down on the kind of redundancy and the kind of safeguards that will really prevent them from being dependent on AWS as a single point of failure.
People will be wondering, I'm sure, about a worst case scenario. Even when things come back online relatively quickly, people will ask themselves about what you mentioned just earlier, the big one. And what could the big one look like?
Well, the big one could look like vital services being down around the world. We got just a little bit of a taste of this morning at LaGuardia in New York, where there were long lines for the kiosks, according to the New York Times. And so this then gives you a sense for the kinds of things that could become exacerbated. We've seen this in the past with operating system issues. And this is the kind of infrastructure that the world is really relying on, and it can have devastating impact if it's at a larger scale.